What's up, everybody, and welcome to the Apartment 113 podcast, where we talk with cool folks in the cannabis and psychedelics industry to learn about their projects and celebrate their successes. My name is Rob Sanchez, and this is episode 22. We're joined today by Bill White. Bill is in business development for Xylem Technologies, the Blinc Group, and Bespoke Packaging. Xylem Tech makes automated cartridge filling systems and other products to automate and improve the cannabis manufacturing space. The Blinc Group provides cannabis vaping hardware and parts with a focus on innovation, quality, and safety. Bespoke Packaging creates CPG packaging for high-end products that can be completely customized to suit your needs. Bill has a good perspective on the industry and is a one-stop shop for manufacturing needs when it comes to automation, hardware supplies, and packaging. Look for links in the notes and enjoy the show. Bill, man, welcome to the show.
Hey, thanks, Rob. Great to be here. I appreciate the invitation.
Hey, yeah, it's definitely going to be good to dig into it and kind of hear about your projects and talk shop, man. We've crossed paths a few times in these conferences, but maybe never properly to have a long conversation.
Yeah, no, absolutely. Absolutely. It's been really fun. And like you said, the couple of times that our paths crossed at some of those trade shows, it's kind of weird to think, 5-10 years ago, who would have thought we were at, doing business around cannabis and enjoying it.
Yes, right. It's come a long way from having to do that maybe more secretly with some coded text messages, right?
Right. 100%.
Instead of meeting up there for the Emerald Cup in Santa Rosa, definitely a great experience to see the industry turn out and have some wonderful home and outdoor grown flower.
Yeah, no doubt. I couldn't believe my good fortune. I think it was like 5 jars for $100 of really the most amazing craft sun-grown flower I've ever had in my life. I think I got a little bit left, but not much.
Sitting nice and pretty for a while.
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah, dude, it was a good experience there, and I wish I could consume more to try more. Felt like there was just so much to potentially consume or smell and hear the stories behind.
Oh yeah, no doubt about it. I mean, it was my first and only Emerald Cup, candidly, so far, but it kind of exceeded my expectations in terms of, I've been up for Hall of Flowers and stuff in Santa Rosa and up in Humboldt and Emerald Triangle area for business, of course, but going to something like that that's so celebrated, that's so long running, and really getting to talk to the people that have their hands on it, that are doing it, it was super enlightening, and it was a really, really cool experience. I mean, it's the cradle of cannabis for the U.S. at least, right? So it was pretty humbling.
It's just the best environmental factors right there, and folks figured it out quick, and they've been out there in the woods growing ever since, right?
Yeah, no doubt about it.
So was Emerald Cup your first? You mentioned it was your first Emerald Cup, but it wasn't your first conference. I know you were down at MJ BizCon last year, and kind of making around. I think you said you were down at BizCon and making some other trade show routes. I know we went to a little after party at BizCon this last year as well.
Yeah, that was a good one. Yeah, MJ BizCon, a couple of the clients that I represent and develop business for, Xylem Robotics specifically, has a pretty aggressive trade show schedule. So, of course, MJ BizCon sort of being the crown jewel in terms of the biggest show of the year and drawing a ton of people from all over the world. And really kind of, the Xylem stuff is more, supply chain, it's automation and basically the robotic machines that fill and cap vape carts. So it fits in with all of those huge halls in BizCon you see of, lights and commercial level grinders and pre-roll fillers and all that type of stuff. So it's not really like the super, exciting and fun side of cannabis in terms of the branding element, but yeah, we've been going to a lot of these trade shows, and to your point, like we had a good time hanging out at the was it the Kingpin Suite, or which one was that exactly?
Yeah, man, at that Kingpin Suite after party was great, and there was
those after parties tend to be really the most productive of all sort of trade show endeavors in my experience, like being able to get in and hang out with your peers and colleagues and potential customers and even, potential employers or clients, and really just kind of be able to talk shop, but even less talk shop, get to know one another. Obviously, cannabis is such a social thing, and it's so fun to be able to go to an actual, meeting, develop business, get new clients, and develop new relationships down the line. And while you're, having a couple of J's instead of something else.
Yes. I think when it comes to trade shows, there's something I tell many folks, and that's when you're driving up or when you're pulling up in the Uber and you see the smoking circle outside the trade show, that can often indicate how that show is going to go. You can sort of tell where where you're walking in and what you're gonna get up to.
Yeah, no doubt about it. No doubt about it. It's really funny in that respect. All of the different ones that I've been able to go to, whether it's MJ BizCon, it's gigantic with all the machinery and supply chain stuff and lighting and packaging, and the list goes on. And then going to, like, say, the early days of Hall of Flowers, where it was really highly curated, specifically brands and buyers, and that was it. And then, as we referenced earlier, Emerald Cup, not that it's a trade show, but just seeing the different sort of overall vibe and collection of attendees and exhibitors, it is really interesting. And I think the common aspect of all those things is how valuable the sort of after party, or at least networking events that happen after the formal show closes. I've had such great experience in developing new relationships, friendships, clients, customers, etc. Just from being able to go to a trade show to the cannabis and specific to the cannabis industry, and be able to, pass a blunt or a joint around. We did one in Boston with a big suite at Fenway Park, and I'm not even a baseball fan, but you can tell sort of the reverence that everyone in that city's got for Fenway and the park itself, and the
It,
opportunity to, like, go up there and burn one in the stands. Like, it was kind of a cool moment to be able to see that.
yeah, man. As the society comes around, there's going to be a lot of those areas where starting to cross cannabis with these regular endeavors or these like significant venues like Fenway or
Hmm.
historical places is definitely unreal to think about it.
Yeah,
Just a
no,
few
it's
years back. So
totally wild.
and on the Xylem side, man, the automated piece of the cannabis industry is no small industry. I mean, it takes like quite a lineup of equipment, a good
Hmm.
team, and some software to really churn out the volume that these dispensaries are selling. We
Hmm.
just hear about the revenue numbers, what every state's doing, but thinking about all those SKUs being made and hundreds or thousands of pre rolls being made at the same time is just
Sure.
it's a problem at scale, man. How many pre rolls can those machines create at once?
Well, there are three main machines right now that Xylem has commercialized. The first one is a vape cart filling and capping system. Whereas I'm sure you've been in a lab and seen, people filling vape carts. They might have, a Hot Shot or a Thompson Duke or ATG Pharma, but at the end of the day, most of these machines or systems require a pretty tedious manual intensive process, where the techs are using trays, where the carts need to be lined up in a tray, and then they are either filling these things by hand or they're filling them en masse with this system. And then also there's a capping process. So not only is it manual and tedious, it requires a lot of people, it's prone to more error, and it's prone to more leakage, because a lot of times the vape carts aren't being capped right away, and so they're missing the sort of wicking process that creates the vacuum seal. So with the
Oh,
Xylem
interesting.
system, yeah, the Xylem system, basically the tech drops a bunch of empty carts in one hopper, the mouthpieces for those carts in another hopper. There's a 2 liter reservoir, stainless steel hermetically sealed tank, so it doesn't burn off the terpenes. Set the temperature at the right temperature setting, so you're not denaturing the terpenes for live resin or live rosin, whatever material. So it's filling it at the coolest point possible, but it's also heating the carts before the oil goes in, and then it's most crucially capping it like within seconds of the cart being filled. So it's like less than 1% failure rate in terms of leakage. And to contrast, like, the output is like 1,500 an hour filled and capped. You can
Oh,
count on
damn.
sort of 10,000 vape carts filled and capped in an 8 hour shift with one operator.
Oh,
So
wow.
you can already tell the scale that thing puts out. that level of production would require a room full of people doing things very manually. And so to your point, automation is the future. It's happened in every other industry. It just so happens we're in a startup industry where, companies are bringing automation to the fore. Um, you're mentioning the pre-roll infusion machine that Xylem's got. It will put basically 40 infused pre-rolls out every 2 minutes with one tech operating it. And another system that is under R&D right now that should be commercialized within the next 2 months was an automated diamond and sauce filler that, instead of having a whole table of techs weighing stuff out on scales, putting them in the little jars, and then squirting, the HTE or the turp sauce over the top.
Right.
This thing requires a tech putting one jar on a scale every 10 seconds. It measures out the diamonds, squirts the appropriate amount of sauce. They take it off. It just really up levels and upscales the productivity for our customers.
Wow, yeah, just being able to get that consistency as well is so important for branding and to deliver the same thing again and again that a consumer expects. And I think that's where automation has some hidden value, and it's very much like the cannabis industry kind of growing up and coming to the real table. And all these other industries have been fully automated this entire time. We're just so used to these legacy methods of, fleets of 20, 30 people rolling pre-rolls with little hand machines and things like that.
Right.
It's another world, man, on the scale there with the footprint too. Like you could put one of those machines in a single room with one operator and, churn out what a warehouse would do.
Yeah, no, exactly. And the cool thing is, a lot of people, I guess a knee-jerk response to automation is like, oh, it's taking people's jobs. It took our jobs type of thing, where it's actually not. You're basically able to redeploy staff in the lab, to get them trained up on automation, which is a really great skill and a necessary skill to have moving forward, and then also have them doing more meaningful stuff in the lab. So, it can, and at the end of the day, it's a system that once you've moved X number of widgets, in this case with the Xylem X3, it's like 100 plus grand machine, but if you can move the volume it puts out, it pays for itself in 6 to 8 weeks. So, it's definitely something that, companies are moving forward to as they can afford.
Yeah, right. As soon as you're at that kind of peak capacity or churning out that volume, it just pays for itself, or it's almost an obvious addition to the workforce there.
Yeah, no doubt about it.
Well, how about the Blinc Group side of things? How did you get involved with the team there, and what kind of projects are spinning on the Blinc Group's plate for 23?
Yeah, so Blinc Group is a really cool company. They're headquartered out of New York, and they've got a full team over in China, and essentially doing everything vape hardware related. The CEO and co-founder Arnaud Dumas came from the e-cig industry, if I'm not mistaken. He sat on several European boards for vape standards, not only in the nicotine but also the THC space. So he's been sort of an entrepreneur, an advocate, and very deeply entwined with legislation and shaping things for the most important aspect of it, in his opinion, is the health related and ensuring that these devices are consistent and meet a very, very high standard. So with the Blinc Group, they do everything from sort of standard 510 thread vape carts, half gram, full gram, any number of mouthpieces, etc., all the way into fully customized vape pen, pod, and battery systems, kind of running the gamut. And
okay. So kind of almost everything you need to run the automated machines we were discussing earlier, man. Huh? It's kind of the necessary materials on that side to get everything packed and loaded.
Right, 100%. The Xylem system was really designed to be hardware agnostic in terms of virtually any C-cell or C-cell clone 510 thread cart, half gram and full gram will work with that system out of the box or with very minor tweaking.
Okay.
And so what that tweaking requires is, like, when a customer buys a Xylem system, we ask for, a few hundred pieces of each of the hardware form factors that they'll be using. Those are sent to the lab in Houston, where the engineers at Xylem measure those for variances and tolerances and just ensure that the system is optimized for that particular cart or hardware.
Oh,
Because a lot of
nice.
the
Nice.
yeah, a lot of the companies that will purchase a Xylem are white labelers that are filling carts for multiple brands, and not every brand's going to have the exact same hardware or form factor. So Blinc is a company that creates very high end carts across all sort of price points and spectrums, but we've partnered with them quite a bit where due to the fact that a lot of our clients are using Blinc hardware and the system's optimized, and we have a million sort of customer referrals, if you will, as far as people using Blinc hardware seamlessly with Xylem, as we do with other companies, across the spectrum for hardware. But it's been a really cool synergy. And in terms of what does Blinc have on the horizon, it's quite a bit. They've got an arm called Blinc Finance, where one of the hardest things for cannabis companies to come by is financing or lending or terms of any kind. Blinc Finance will step in, offer a very simple sort of application process where borrowers can borrow up to 5 months on a sliding scale, I believe up to about 8%. And it's a very quick online application. Usually the underwriters are back to them within like 2-3 hours. And then at that point, they can push the button on a web portal. They've already, when they onboard, they're tying in their bank account info via Plaid. It's all encrypted, but it's a way where cannabis companies can secure financing or terms very, very quickly, very easily. And so Blinc Finance offers that. They're also one of the first of their kind to offer what they call a vendor managed inventory, where let's say you're a large co-packer and you have 300,000 vape carts a month coming in, but you're anticipating bringing in a couple of new clients or some new promotions, but you don't have the physical warehouse space. What Blinc will do is they will basically house your inventory within generally a 1.5 to 2 hour driving radius, and basically house it off site. So when you see that your stuff is running low, you're not scrambling and ordering something from China and dealing with whatever's the issue of the day is going on. If it's supply chain or it's air freight or whatever's going on, you basically just order your inventory. It gets there within a couple of hours. And Blinc can sort of help manage your supply chain and manage your inventory and keep those costs down from having to buy new stuff,
Okay.
office space, if you will. So
Yeah.
they've got
Right.
some really creative services overall.
Awesome, man. Yeah, just kind of helping to provide that seamless kind of nature that the cannabis industry needs to keep the manufacturing pipeline full, right? Keep that funnel
Yeah.
fed.
Yeah, 100%.
And yeah, and keeping just warehouse and locate or storage space is just a problem in and of itself in cannabis, with cultivation
Sure.
taking up so much space and maybe some prime storage locations, and then needing to store everything else involved for the process. Man, I can imagine that the service would come in handy, especially in some like major metro areas or cities where space may be at a premium.
Yeah, no, absolutely. And some of this stuff is delicate and needs to be stored properly. You don't want to pay up for a bunch of high-end packaging and have it all dinged up because it was sitting, somewhere crammed in your facility. So yeah,
Right,
it does.
right. Sacrificing quality just to store it somewhere.
Sure.
On the packaging side too, it's kind of seems like your involvement with some of these companies is following the trail, the paper trail here towards the finished goods, man. Because we started with the automation and machines, and then we
Hmm.
get to the hardware and some of the storage and financial aspects of the Blinc Group. But
Hmm.
how about now the bespoke packaging angle and your work with that side of the industry? I know packaging
Yeah.
is often like makes or breaks a brand. Some brands may leave
Yeah.
it very vanilla and go simple, and others try to go all out, right, and really make something
Right.
unique.
No, it is really an interesting space, and a guy that I met like 5-6 years ago, when I was actually doing outreach, trying to get into the cannabis industry, and he invited me to sit down and grab some coffee, and so he basically gave me an intro to the packaging realm as it relates to cannabis, and a few years later, I started working officially developing business, but the company is Bespoke Packaging. It's bespokepkg.com. And essentially, it's a company with manufacturing operations in China that initially started out as like I believe, L'Oreal certified packaging company that was working in cosmetics and consumer products. alcohol and beverage, high-end CPG like Louis Vuitton, Moet Hennessy Group, and stuff like that. And they started building out their cannabis vertical. So yeah, I was fortunate to get in with them, and it really kind of ties all three of these clients of mine together: Bespoke, Xylem, and Blinc. In terms of, like you said, starting out with the raw goods, filling them, and then throwing them into the finished goods. And packaging is like a hyper competitive side of the industry. It's difficult to sort of suss through who you're dealing with in terms of, who might be a broker or who's trying to pad margins. But ultimately, to your point, packaging can make or break a brand. And I think those that come through with really innovative, cool stuff, it doesn't even have to be super fancy or high tech, but it does help. I swear to God, like early days when I was buying vape carts and Rove carts, I was just like, that packaging's super cool and the vape cart is super cool looking. I gotta have it. And as it turned out,
Could
they
win
had
you
like,
over.
yeah, exactly. It's just like, man, look at all this stuff. So it's really fun, getting with a customer. We did a concentrate jar that basically came out of a square box that had sort of a clamshell opening, if you would. And when you pulled it apart, the concentrate jar raised up like the Raiders of the Lost Ark or something. It was really cool.
Nice.
So coming up with dope stuff like that, and then coming up with cool child resistant stuff that doesn't drive an adult crazy opening it up. It's really fun, and it's an interesting part of the industry, and it's a whole other sales cycle and touch points and everything. It's quite interesting.
Right, different customers that are talking packaging, I imagine, than those that are ready to just set up their manufacturing facility. Their businesses are in a different stage too.
Yeah. Yeah. And that's been really the fun part about working with all these different companies on the ancillary or supply chain side of things is I'm not restricted to just selling in California. It's really any market that wants to buy it. And when we start going to these different markets, whether it's Arizona or Illinois or Michigan or Jersey or Mass or New York City, Vegas, you name it, you're seeing all these different markets in various stages of maturing, and you're kind of seeing the commonalities of where they may or may not have looked at how we did in these older legal states, whether it's Colorado, Oregon, California, and seemingly learning from our mistakes, and then also coming up with some really innovative, cool ideas. So, and then also, going into some of these trade shows, we went to NECANN in Boston, probably the first or second year that it was happening, and it was cool to be there and represent and meet people, but people were literally just barely getting their licenses to cultivate. Like the idea of having extraction was 2-3 years off, but lo and behold, 2-3 years later, they're doing it. They've got their foothold in the market, and it's been really fun to watch some of these different areas come online and see how they're dealing with things.
Yeah, I can imagine seeing that regional lens, especially on the conference circuit. You get a chance to see like the different localities or state approaches, coming up with their innovative solutions and sometimes their innovative mistakes across the board.
Yeah.
I think that seeing those early states, from the seed stage all the way out to when the businesses are really flowing and they start merging and acquiring others, it's
Yeah.
like a little microcosm of the economy of capitalism in general, man. It's
Yeah.
very unique to see that like kind of happening within the borders of the state, and then everyone's watching, right? Thinking, okay,
Yeah.
how do we do that better? Where were the missteps?
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, even add on top of that, since there's no legal way to transport distillate across, state lines, there or any aspect of the raw materials, there's a whole different market and ecosystem in every state, which I'm overstating the obvious, but it's interesting when, distillate for a kilo in California was, as low as a grand or even less. And at the same time in Illinois, it would be 17, and in Michigan would be 14. And when you look at like the impact that makes on the sale of a half gram or a full gram cart, it's bananas. And then, even, the legalities and how they predicate taxes in different states is crazy. I just learned going out to Chicago this last time around a couple months ago, that retail taxes are predicated upon THC content. And so, like concentrates, vapes, and gummies out of the gates are taxed at a much, much higher rate. So, most of
Yeah.
the people in the Chicago metro market that I talk to, they're looking at the vape cart machine and looking at the hardware, and they're just like, yeah, no, we just drive, an hour to the border. We can get 10 1 gram carts for $10 a piece. A 1 gram cart with taxes in Chicago is like a buck 10, a buck 20. And so it's interesting to see these weird tax things and these different laws and basically what that's prompting people to do. And one thing I was encouraged about, like Minnesota, just I think became the 23rd state to go adult use legal.
Yeah.
And from what I understand, they are floating the idea of having infused beverages for sale at state liquor stores, or at least where liquor stores that are licensed or something.
Right.
But to me, it's like that's what it's going to be. I think that's what it's going to take, is the accessibility for people to be able to make that choice, as opposed to go to the liquor store and then be like, do I want to drive across town and pay 13, 14 bucks for a 10 milligram per, beverage? I think if it's right there in the liquor store, at least it helps the beverage side of things spin up a bit.
Yeah, man, the beverage cannabis side is pretty unique. I think I can see the value of sipping a cannabis beverage and hanging out, but at the same time I could play devil's advocate, and I think I could argue that it feels frivolous or extra. But I think I got to remember that not all consumers are coming from the same background or the same mindset. Mm-hmm. And for folks new to cannabis, I think a beverage is like gateway. It's an entry level product to just give it a try, right? Just sip on this drink and you'll start to get the effects kind of slowly, right, through the edible biochemical pathways, instead of just ingesting it or taking a huge dab and just getting rocked off your off your feet.
Yeah.
So I think the beverages, the market has only just begun, and we're going to see that really boom as different states start to figure that out, and breweries kind of tap into how to play in that space too, or we see more of like tap rooms, ability to sample things. I think that the connoisseurship angle that could come with beverages would be great, man. Like some of these cocktail artists, basically, making an old fashioned like you'd never believe. I'd love to see some of those cats making things with cannabis concentrates or certain terpenes.
Yeah. No, that would be amazing. And I mean, I think that once there's some sort of, proper mixology aspect to things and it tastes good, people will immediately wake up to the fact that it's way less caloric and you feel fine the next day.
Certain smells are so great, man. From the cocktail perspective with aromatics and things like that, you think that the terpenes could play in beautifully from a mixologist perspective. Making a foam of terpenoline and I don't know, whatever kind of weird things they can make, little pearls of limonene flavored concentrate or something.
Yeah.
That could be legit.
Call it the Sanchez.
All right, you guys heard it here. Yeah, I got at one point I was implementing software for a place that was doing some experimentation in like single terpenes, and they made a vape cartridge for me with only cariphyllene in it, and it was kind of a weird experience. It didn't really have any high or anything. It was more of like therapeutic, I guess, or aromatic. You could just get the flavor of that, like a really strong, nice flavor of the terp.
Yeah. So I mean, cariphyllene, what does that impart? Does it calm, focus? What's it supposed to be?
Yeah, it's definitely on the calmer side, a little more sedative, and kind of like a peppery, earthy kind of flavor. But I think they were extracting the individual ones to actually add them back and like make their own flavor combinations or juice up some that may be lacking. It was just kind of a weird one to try them by themselves, but I keep telling people, man, I would try like gum or something, candy, if it was all terpene flavored. I think that's still
Oh yeah.
the last frontier for cannabis.
Yeah, no doubt. Like those hash chews, I'm sure you've had those things before. They're pretty
Yes, yeah.
amazing. They're pretty amazing.
Yeah, I was talking with this guy that does emulsions. So his company Vertosa takes cannabis concentrate in the oil form and runs it through this emulsification process that lets it become water soluble, so that you can easily add it to all kinds of liquids. And he was saying that
Wow.
gum is particularly difficult because once you start chewing it, like the flavor is harder to keep in the gum.
Huh.
There's
Interesting.
a whole realm of food science back there that I am not aware of.
Yeah, yeah. The terpene and flavor houses are doing some really interesting alchemy.
Yes, indeed. And I think the terpenes, man, are really good kind of a handholds or a guiding rope to get through the industry. And speaking of industry, man, let me grab a cannabis delivery real quick.
Yeah.
Hey, thanks for waiting, man. Just grabbing some concentrates. I got some garlic butter, live resin sugar, and some Grateful Chem live
Oh,
resin sugar. So it should be some tasty concentrates for the week.
yeah. That sounds like a good mix.
Yeah, I've been stuck on the Puffco still, man, since we last met. It's been my
Hmm.
go-to, my daily driver, dude.
Yeah.
What's your daily piece or your preferred consumption method at this point?
At the moment, I've been really big on flour and tracking down the stuff that I really like and experimenting or exploring with other stuff. But pretty much really enjoy skinning up a nice joint and relaxing. That's been my preferred mode. I've got a bunch of concentrates. I just really haven't dug into them recently, so we'll see. But interesting thing is, I did have, or still do, a little bit left of Motor Breath hash from Papa and Barkley from like 2 years ago, and it's been stored properly. And I enjoyed some of that over the weekend, and it's still amazing. So
Still packed of flavor.
it still packed plenty of flavor and smelled, tasted great. It was just it was amazing. But yeah, big on flower and specifically like there's the African landrace sativas, and even more specifically than that, red Congolese, which is really difficult to find. For a period of time, Gold Leaf or Gold Seal, rather, I think in California had it, and for now, it seems like House of Congo has rebranded to, or Congo Club rebranded to House of Congo, and that's the real deal from a guy named Congo Chris in NorCal, and it's this. It's cool. They're doing a little bit of education behind it as well, instead of being locked into the sativa versus indica tropes. They're, calling these, equatorial sativa hybrids or what have you, and really kind of drilling down on the region and the terroir and all that stuff behind it. But
Oh, beautiful.
bottom line, super, super high in THCV, smokes really nicely, and so that's definitely been the jam at our house every night.
Cannot go wrong with some quality grown flour, some flour that's been treated with love from the whole way through,
Yeah,
right?
exactly, exactly. You can see it.
And once you find one of those strains, you mentioned the red Congolese. I don't think that's one that I've tried like by itself. Maybe I've had it in crosses or had something related there. But once you find one of those strains that speaks to you, man, it's like you're stuck on it. You don't forget that feeling or that smell. I think everyone has that one cultivar that is in their heart.
Yeah. Yeah, no doubt about it. I mean, growing up in like junior high and high school, I was in Fresno, California, Central Cal. So we were really lucky to, get really good NorCal herb from time
Oh
to
man,
time.
you're lucky,
And
dude. Yeah.
it was amazing. I mean, that was my first experience with a hot knife, was with some buddies of mine from high school, and it was some insane sticky green Humboldt weed, and yeah, it was pretty amazing. It was a fun time growing up, and I
Yeah,
wouldn't
man,
tra-
that's like
I would
living a little heaven right there. I think the cannabis
yeah.
we were getting in the high school days was like, you know, across the Mexican border, like some like packed in a bag. It was awful.
Hmm. Yeah,
Ditchweed.
yeah. But you know what? Didn't matter what it was. We started sourcing like Wednesday nights, so you knew that Friday everyone was set.
Yes, sir. Right, man. And I think the way it worked often in Kansas is before it even got there, it was gone. You know, like a lot of
Yeah.
it would start to be pre-sold. Some of these facilitators were getting creative with their pre-orders.
Oh man.
It was a long
Yeah,
way
that's
across the
tough.
country to get out to Kansas.
Yeah, no doubt, no doubt. That's funny.
For me, I think that cultivar is Ultra Sonia. It's a UK cheese and Tang Tang cross that has just like a very like fruity, like really fruit forward nose. That
Hmm.
once you get past that initial burst of like kind of Kool-Aid, it has like a deep cheesy funk underneath it. You know,
Interesting.
that kind of like armpit cheese smell. I can't explain why it's so good.
You're really selling it, Rob.
Yeah, right. You can't wait to try this strain. It's like cherry Kool-Aid maybe with like a really strong garlic undertone in there.
Hmm.
Yeah, and it's when I
Yeah.
first smelled it, man, the way I can describe it is like being a cartoon character, like smelling pie on the windowsill, and like your feet
Yeah.
fly up behind you, and like you fly over to the pie. Like, oh,
Yeah, yeah, exactly.
don't mind if I do.
Uh,
What's this delicious aroma?
yeah, yeah. Sounds magical. Where did I don't think I've ever heard of that. Do you have a regular go-to you can find?
Unfortunately, I do not, man. It's from Grindhouse Seeds. I think that the seeds are still available. So one of these days, I need to get some seeds on hand and get a cut going of my own. It was
Now you're
prevalent
talking.
in Colorado for a little while. There was an Ultra Sonia and a Red Sonia,
Hmm.
but the THC percentage was a little on the low side. It was very terp heavy, but kind of between 15 and 17% THC. And
Hmm.
honestly, I think the market kind of pushed it out, unfortunately.
Huh.
Like the drive for like more heavier hitters, because we didn't grow a whole lot of it. But yeah, she's
Yeah.
a juicy lady.
Yeah, that sounds like a good one.
Man, any plant you spend a long time with, or any aroma you really start to dig into, I think you can start to spin that narrative, right, and like kind of
Hmm.
identify those flavors or figure out what's unique about them.
Yeah, yeah, I find that stuff fascinating. Obviously, you've done the deepest dives possible on that. But I think it's fascinating to look at sort of the genetics and the crossing and the aromatics that can come out of that, and just it's amazing. And I think it's a long way to go too. I think we're going to see some cool shit.
Yeah, dude. Who knows what we'll be smoking on in 10 years, or if it's even smoking at all, man. It'll be like an inhaler, or it's like a little
Yeah.
mint or something. You just take it.
Yeah, I just want to plug it into the little jack in the back of my skull and get on with my business.
It just keeps you at a set level.
Yeah, no doubt, no doubt.
Actually, at the
But
psychedelics conference, there was a Benzinga psychedelics like investor conference in Florida, and
mhm.
there was a unique device there that someone was looking for a patent or looking to sell that would do like psychedelic assisted therapy similar to like diabetes medicine, and it would kind of
Mhm.
attach to you and kind of apply the medicine intravenously while
Mhm.
monitoring the levels to ride people through or to administer it in kind of a safe way so people can't overdose or get a little too wild one night on
Yeah,
psilocybin or ketamine or something.
yeah, that's wild. That's wild. In before getting into cannabis, I was in tech and then med device, and I actually
Oh,
worked with a big company called Dexcom that makes that blood glucose monitor you're talking about. And I never even
okay,
thought about
yeah.
the implications of that with respect to, psychedelic, delivery systems and monitoring it. So, obviously we've all got different metabolisms and everything affects us differently. If you had, custom monitoring device to monitor your levels, and those things are I mean, they are invasive. Obviously, they stick in onto your arm, but it's
Yeah, there's a
not
reason
big.
why
It's
you
not a
have
big
it at
deal.
that point, and it's
Yeah,
the benefit is that you get that consistent dosing or that consistent kind of support that might be interesting for more therapeutic approaches in cannabis and psychedelics. So how did you take that jump over from the medical device industry into cannabis? I can kind of see the correlations with some of the
Hmm.
like automation and the equipment side. But
Yeah.
was there like a catalyst or something that kind of pushed you over the line to jump into the cannabis side?
Yeah, there was. I mean, I started out my career in the tech industry and doing mostly executive recruiting and business development and sales, and then I moved into medical device largely because the big consulting firm I was working with, they're called KPMG Consulting. Now they're called Bearing Point, but they'd gone through like rolling waves of layoffs. And when I got impacted, the last thing anyone needed was a technical recruiter, and I was fortunate to land with like this medical device company as their in-house recruitment manager. And it's this German company called Karl Storz Endoscopy, and they did
Hmm.
electrosurgical equipment and specifically like endoscopy and minimally invasive surgical instruments and all the image guided surgical systems. So I was stoked to have a job in a really cool industry, but I didn't realize how rewarding it would be to work in an industry that when you're driving home every day, you're like, somehow my efforts are going towards helping someone's, mother, father, sister, uncle, aunt, whatever. And not to be all, kumbaya and altruistic, but it did have a good feeling to it. But I was also a
For
cannabis
sure.
user
For
since
sure.
like eighth grade, and always wanted to do something in cannabis. And then, of course, being out here for the last 25 years, seeing the early days and getting my doctor's recommendation, and then seeing the evolution of products happening in dispensaries from homemade baked goods to all of a sudden Kiva bars with perfect wrapping and cartons and all this other stuff. And I just remember thinking like, man, I'd love to get into cannabis, but I couldn't wrap my head around like, what does that mean? Do I cultivate? Do I work in a dispensary? It was really kind of like tunnel vision, which is silly because, I was doing executive recruiting in two different industries. And as soon as adult use and everything became legal in California, I was like, holy shit, I can leverage my recruiting experience and do it in an industry that really, really means something to me.
Yeah.
And in my
Yeah.
mind, it was like, I'm going to take these, classically trained backgrounds from consumer products, med device, tech, software, and bring them into this industry that's going to have that same talent to up level. So, it became very apparent very quickly, like, what can I do in cannabis? You can do whatever you're doing right now in cannabis. They need accounting, finance, quality,
Yes.
regulatory, legal, the list
Yeah.
goes on. And I know that there's sort of the opposing, or at least the other side of the coin, where the culture feels like they're, the plant and the culture is suffering. I kind of feel like they can grow concurrently, and there's a lot more opportunity than anything else. And ultimately, it's the march of time. And I feel like, that was. It was the perfect way for me to be able to get into the industry. And then, as you can imagine, all you're doing all day as a recruiter is looking for the decision makers that will sign off on a 15, 20, 25% recruitment contract. And so really spinning up the network very quickly. And my entire career has been
Yes.
all
Yeah.
about networking and connecting. That's all it's ever been.
Right. So
And
it's
so,
just kind of taking those skills, and it wasn't really more of a retraining then, huh? More of just a refocus, or really honing in on the cannabis side.
yeah, exactly. And that came with a whole other host of like realizations. I was thinking, oh, I've got all these, people that I know that are med device sales reps and pharma reps and biotech reps and managers and all of that. Well, it becomes apparent immediately that the cannabis companies can't afford those people yet that have, experience. And those people don't want to work in a startup. There's no benefits. There's
Right.
a lot of different things. So it became like a real challenge, but ultimately what it did was require me to sort of look like what's the right candidate, what's the right background for the cannabis industry. And it really boils down to being someone who has some sort of passion for the cannabis plant. They don't even have to be a user, but if they have some sort of mission driven idea or belief behind it, whether it's social justice reform or medical efficacy and therapeutics or what have you. But if they've got that sort of mission driven piece, they got to have that. And then they have to be okay with a startup environment and just getting scrappy and figuring out how to do as much as they can with little or no resources.
Yeah. Startups are
And
not for everyone, are they?
yeah, it's hard. It's hard. And you can take the most badass seasoned executive and plop him or her into a startup, and unless their heart's really in it and they're ready to grind, like it's just not going to happen. You don't have someone
Yes.
booking your travel for you and
Yeah.
processing your expenses and all that stuff. So,
I definitely like the startup vibe of the cannabis industry. It's like so entrepreneurial. Like everyone has their projects or
mhm.
their business and their angle that they're getting involved in. That I feel startups are so prevalent right now, and whether or not they're successful, as that's the hard part. They are always
Mhm.
fun to work in, man. From a startup vibe, at least in the software space, that's when you get to wear all the hats. You get
Mhm.
to design the software. Sometimes you're helping the developers. Sometimes you're selling it, or working out the pricing.
Mhm.
It's in scale and in size where it starts to departmentalize, and you need to get in line and kind of get into your corporate role and things like that. That
Yeah.
some of that fun or that innovation from a startup mentality is hard to carry over. Hard to keep
Yeah.
that same energy.
Yeah, it's pretty wild to see that happening, like we did in tech, and certainly I saw it in med device and now cannabis all over the place. But it's refreshing, and I love the idea that, if you are willing to focus and grind and bust your ass and take pride in your work, like there's a spot for anyone in cannabis who can do that. My own brother was a career bartender for many, many years, and the pandemic kind of forced his hand to, like all of a sudden one day his job was gone for the foreseeable future. And he ended up relocating out to Vegas, and 3.5 years later, he's a lead cultivation guy at a big licensed facility in Vegas. He gets to deal with plants every day instead of, obnoxious daily drunks that would come in and just sit there and yammer on. Like he's reinvented himself, and it's been a really hard slog and a tough road. But I just think it's amazing that, this industry and this plant offers a way for people to reinvent themselves and change their life.
Yes, right. Kind of just get involved, do what you do, but
Hmm.
for a cannabis business or start your own cannabis business. And I think it's always
Hmm.
important to remember that you don't have to be the licensed operator to jump in and start. Obviously, that's a great realm to be in if you want to become a licensed operator, but the numbers are difficult there at times to either acquire the license or to maintain it or both.
Hmm. Yeah, yeah, no doubt about it. But I mean, it's like with anything else, of figuring out what's working for you and aligning yourself with the people that you can help and that you can learn from, most importantly, I think, and becoming or striving to become indispensable. And that's how, reputations are made, and that's how people start building the blocks. And there's just a million different ways you can take it in this industry, I think.
100%, man. I think there's a book by, I want to say it's Cal Newport or a quote from him. It's called Be So Good They Can't Ignore You.
I like it.
Where you just,
Yeah, that's good.
you got to shine, man, right? Got to dig.
Yep, no doubt.
Well, are there any conferences on your radar here coming up soon, or what's the next event for the three projects or businesses that you're moving along here?
Yeah, there's some stuff coming up. I believe the NCIA is happening in Long Beach in August, and I won't be with any of my clients representing there, but that historically has been a pretty good show. The next one that's going on for Xylem and Blinc is going to be CannaCon at the end of September in Albany, New York. We did do MJ Unpacked in New York this year. That was cool to see that market, see all the shenanigans going on in bodegas and smoke shops and stuff.
The New York
It was,
industry is a beast in and of itself.
oh my gosh, it's crazy. But we're doing that. Xylem is also going to go pretty big at MJ BizCon this year.
Awesome.
We've got the next iteration of the X3 vape cart filling and capping system that will accommodate both press in and screw in mouthpieces, as well as a couple of new tabletop units that are semi automated for concentrates and pre roll infusions. So that's going to be really cool. And
Yes.
then, yes, and just other than that, trying to get out to some of these more regional conferences and just get plugged back into the event circuit in Los Angeles. There used to be a really healthy roster. Like every other week of stuff, and it seems like there's sort of the next evolution of that is starting to come about. So I'm stoked to go check those out and just stay connected with my people here.
Right, as we see this industry grow, man. Well, thank you for jumping on the show, Bill. Where can folks find more about you, or should they direct their questions to Xylem, Blinc Group, and Bespoke?
Thank you, Rob. You can find me on LinkedIn. It's Bill White. I think it says hardware, automation, and packaging right there in my byline. But otherwise, check out XylemTech.com, BespokePKG.com, or theblincgroup.com. And happy to help you in any hardware, packaging, automation, or just hanging out and talking story like we're doing with Rob today.
Yeah, talking shop. And next time we'll have to get it live so we can have a smoke or two here during the episode.
Oh, that would be great. That would be great.
Thanks for hopping on, Bill.
All right, thank you, Rob. Have a nice evening.
Thank you for listening to the Apartment 113 podcast. For more information about the show and our range of services, visit apt113.com. We offer cannabis operations consulting, agile product management, and connoisseurship services. With over a decade of experience in the cannabis industry, Apartment 113 is here to help.